Hi, my name is Naairah and you are listening to the Ascension Capital podcast. This is episode 2, where we will be discussing women in private equity. Share this with a powerful woman in private equity you know. So I have big shoes to fill because KB was the radio host the last time, and this time it's my turn. So good morning and welcome to Ascension Radio.
You did it.
My voice isn't as smooth as KB's, but yeah, here we are. My name is Naairah and I have Tinyko and Grenya sitting opposite me in the room. And we're here to record a session on women in private equity.
Yeah, it's a fully loaded one, hey?
It is.
Especially just in terms of talking about our experiences in private equity, and a lot of the times it doesn't feel like our challenges are valid because we make it small. You know, we're in private equity and we see each other in private equity and we think that it's such a big feat that we're there, but in fact the representation is low. And I was shocked by the fact that the statistics say there are only 27% of women in private equity in South Africa. That's shocking.
Even more shocking than that, the IFC have reported approximately 11% of females are represented as senior investment professionals in private equity in emerging markets. So there's definitely a huge gender gap. But before we unpack this topic in a bit more detail, I thought let's introduce ourselves. Well, we both work for Ascension Capital Partners. We're a majority Black-owned private equity fund based in Pretoria, South Africa. And interestingly, we're a small team, but Tinyko and I represent 50% of women representation on the investment team. So I think that's quite a balanced representation.
Yeah.
But let's maybe get into some introductions. Tinyko, tell us a bit about yourself, how you got into this industry.
Yeah.
What has your journey been like as a woman navigating this career path?
Yeah, I think private equity was actually a black box. I didn't know about it until I was at Old Mutual doing my articles there. So my journey started at UCT, did my accounting degree there. And then I went to Old Mutual to do my articles. So, you know, instead of doing articles through an auditing firm, I decided to do it through financial services because I knew I just wanted to go into business. That's it. I didn't know how, but I wanted to be in business. And then at Old Mutual, you get to rotate throughout the whole company, through the insurance leg and then through the investment side of it. And that's when I got, exposed to private equity and what it means. And so in terms of where I was at Old Mutual, at that stage, I was an economist at Macro Solutions, and we were servicing all the different departments in terms of giving them macroeconomic insights for their investments. So it was the passive investment customized solution. And then I had to go and give some macroeconomic input for a transaction that the private equity fund was doing. Okay. They were looking at an automotive company and they needed to know in terms of the whole story around the macroeconomic picture and what people are doing and how that impacts their business. And I thought, wow, this is such a cool way to implement what we know. Because basically, in investments, we go in there and we invest in a stock, call it a Naspers, and then it's very much a passive play. And then you just wait for Naspers to move to a price where you sell. Versus in private equity, in order for that price to move or shift, you need to be the one who's doing things within the business, who's being part of the strategy and moving the dial in order for that price to move. And it was so hands-on and I loved it. I was like, this is where I want to be. This is where I want to implement every single thing that I've learned in my life needs to go into private equity because it is so real. It is so real. Everything we do is real. The decisions we make have an impact on the person in that warehouse. It's not just we're trading stocks. We are literally making an impact. And that's what I wanted to do. So,
Tinyko, in your experience, have you found that women are in fact encouraging and open the door for others? Or do you find that it is very closed and more competitive?
Sure. I think in the beginning, it was very much closed because it was all about survival. You were the only one at the table. So you needed to make sure that you stayed at the table and you didn't have any capacity in your mind to think about someone else or bring in, another woman to the table. So before it was very much about survival. And we look at women back then and we say they didn't do enough for us to come and join them at the table. But to be honest, now that I think about it, they didn't have the brain capacity to do so. All they had to do was just make sure that they were still at the table. But now that it's me sitting across the table with you, it's so much better that we see another woman at the table and we realize that, oh my goodness, we coexist together. We need to make sure that someone else sits at the table with us. So I think the dynamics have changed now that other women are bringing others to the table. It's why I joined private equity. In fact, it was another woman, one of my mentors, and I don't know if I can name her, Cora Fernandez, amazing woman, who opened the door for me and said, you need to meet this person, you need to meet this person. And that's how I got into private equity. And that's the only way that we'll have more female representation. It's if Naairah brings Tinyko to the table. It's if Tinyko brings Samantha to the table and Samantha brings Karina to the table. And that's the only way that we will lift as we rise and get to that kind of representation that we need in private equity.
100% agree. And in my view, I think what also helps is inclusive cultures. So, I mean, from my personal experience, throughout my career, I've been in this industry for over 10 years. I've experienced being in the minority as a female. I can't express how many meetings I've been to where I have been the only female in a big meeting of professionals. And to add to that, most times I was also the only person of color in the room. So I was a minority on many levels. And the way that I experienced that is I became very quiet, very withdrawn, trying to stay out of trouble. I was there taking notes in meetings. I didn't feel comfortable to necessarily speak up, engage with the boys club type of vibe. I felt somewhat out of that. So it was an experience of just almost being the first person to kind of go through it because you don't see anyone else on your team. There's not much other female representation. You're not sure how you're supposed to act, how you're supposed to behave. So you kind of keep a very low profile and in a sense, you kind of overcompensate in the work. So yes, I'd be very quiet in meetings, but when we get back to the office, I'd be crunching the numbers, building the models, working crazy hours and almost overcompensating for the fact that I am different and I almost have to give extra value to have some sort of value. Yeah, so that was my experience.
Your experience is also sort of, it's magnified by the way people treat you as well. And you just talk about the inclusive culture, And I remember in meetings, I would be the one to go and print stuff for the meeting that's happening. Please go print this for us. Does anyone need water? Then you could please go get water for the meeting. And it's the way they treat us as well that sort of magnifies that, okay, maybe I don't yet have my place at the table and I need to overcompensate to prove that I'm not just there to get water for the meeting or to go and print stuff for the meeting. So I read this amazing book about just an inclusive culture, right? Diversity and inclusivity. And as much as you have women around the table, you need to make sure that you, as the male, call it colleague, include them in that meeting too and be conscious about it, right? Because when you're sitting in that meeting, do you not notice that they don't look at you when they're talking? They don't address you as the woman in the room.
Yes.
And how does your male colleague ensure that they are always bringing you back into that conversation and saying, by the way, Naairah did this, by the way, Naairah, etc. And making sure that another thing that was in this book was whenever a female speaks, the male colleague always says what she's trying to say is.
Oh. Sure.
All right? Meaning, what you're saying is either not represented in the right way, or you don't have the facts right. And that always just minimizes your input in the meeting. And they always pick this up. The male colleague will always say what she's trying to say is.
Sure.
Exactly.
I must look out for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we're pretty lucky at Ascension, because I feel like we've really gotten a true inclusive culture. And I think inclusivity isn't a tick the box type of thing. It has to be so genuine and authentic for it to actually work.
Yeah.
You know, say even if you have an environment where there are majority males and there is, you know, minority females, what are the majority doing to make the minority
Exactly.
feel included? An inclusive culture, because otherwise I think you defeat the whole purpose. You can't actually get the benefits of the whole diversity and, you know, inclusiveness. So I think we're very fortunate. Yeah, at Ascension, I feel very comfortable, very respected. I don't feel that I have to keep my mouth shut. I feel like if I have a thought, I have a contribution, I feel very comfortable to voice it.
That's true.
What is your views in the team dynamics?
Well, that's what representation does, right? Representation makes it a more conscious decision to let the other woman speak or to include other women. And I can say, for an example, so we have 2 pregnant women at the office. And because our HR person is a female, there's now like parking for her closest to the office, remember? And now she's sitting at the ground floor. But it's that kind of thinking, you know?
Yeah.
She didn't say, guys, I can't go upstairs, you know? But it was another woman recognizing that, no, we need to make sure that she's comfortable in the office. Let's get her parking closest to the office, and let's get her a ground floor office space.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
And it's all about representation. You can only realize that if you're another woman.
100%.
And you make the place easier for other women to coexist. And once you do that, then trust me, it makes it so much easier for that person to contribute in terms of their productivity, because now they're not just thinking about, oh my goodness, you know, I'm in a space where I need to try and show up, but they're already there. So then they can just start thinking about their work and be productive.
Yeah, that's 100% feeds into an inclusive culture in a workplace. Another topic I want to explore is where the drive for transformation and gender representation and diversity is coming from, especially in the private equity world. So what we've kind of seen is that it's coming from the LPs. LPs are looking at private equity fund manager teams and looking at the construct. I think they'd be very less likely to support, say, 100% male team, because they understand the benefits of diversity. So I think there's a big drive coming from LPs, which is a very, very positive sign that, you know, managers have to make conscious efforts to ensure their constituency is very well balanced.
That's true. And it's also the investment decisions. So I remember when I was at All Mutual, so one of the private equity principals was driving the fact that they need more women in the team. And his reason was they missed sorbet.
What?
Sorbet as an investment.
Oh.
Because none of them were looking at sorbet.
Yeah.
But if they had a woman in the team saying, I go in, I do my nails all the time at sorbet, and I love the quality of the service that they have there, then they would have bought sorbet.
Yeah.
And it's just small things like that, that we have a different perspective in the way that we interact with people as well.
Yeah.
So perhaps a different kind of a franchise that we would see as an investment opportunity that they don't see because they don't interact, you know, with the people within that industry. So it's those kind of things too.
Exactly.
It does help. It also helps having diversity in ages too, right? So it's not just having women, but young people too. So young people are more tech savvy and they interact on WhatsApps and these Instagrams. So they see a lot of things thrown at them in terms of marketing because no one advertises on TV any longer. They're using social media as a marketing tool. So that's where you're seeing a lot of these businesses market. And how do you capture that then if you don't have diversity in your team? How do you see those investment opportunities?
Yeah, no, 100%. I feel like young people add such an interesting dynamic, and I actually learn so much from young people because maybe I'm at the
Says
age.
the young person.
No, maybe I'm at the age where maybe I'm a little old, and yeah, I just gain so much from young people. They have a different perspective, different slang and terms, and that I had no idea about. But they really have such a valuable contribution. And besides the age diversity, what I also love is the qualification and background diversity. Because I noticed, having a team comprised of, say, CAs, and with us, we also have Kabelo, our CEO. He's a lawyer by background.
Yes.
And the fact that he has a different qualification, he thinks completely different to us. And in a way, he captures or catches things we don't see, and we see things he doesn't see. And it's so complementary. And I love that. I feel so secure in the fact that we are well-rounded.
Yeah, that's so true.
And we don't just have binary ways of thinking because we've all studied the same thing and think about things the same way.
Yeah. That's true.
So Tinyko, earlier this year, we went to a Jersey Finance event, Women in Private Equity. And I found it a fascinating event because all the women speakers that spoke at the event, there was a common theme that came up, and we related to it so much. And that is the theme of imposter syndrome.
Yes. Yes.
I relate very strongly to it. Do you want to reflect on your experience of imposter syndrome and how that's impacted your life and how it appears?
Yeah, it was actually funny. At that event, everyone who spoke, they said, "Hi, my name is, Tinyko Ngwenya, and I'm an imposter."
Yep.
That's how they introduced themselves.
Exactly.
Because they didn't feel good enough to be there as a keynote speaker. And it's like, but why me? And then you look at the experience and you're like, but why not you?
Yeah.
But I think that, sure, I've experienced it a lot in the beginning, and it's about speaking your truth, right? And I'm a Robin Sharma fan, hey, 5 a.m. Club, and one of his podcasts is around how to speak your truth without fear. And the key thing is your relationship with yourself is what determines the way you are in the workplace. And because we don't have a relationship with ourselves in that we don't think we're good enough because we're the first, number one. Number one, you're the only one in that room. Yeah. So I'm like, why me? Where's everyone else? So you don't think you're good enough. And then because of that, you don't have this good relationship with yourself, and therefore you do not show up in a room. And the only way you can speak your truth is if you're comfortable in your shoes, you're comfortable in who you are, you're comfortable in the place that you are. And it's taken me a very long time to say, I belong. I belong.
Yep.
And the minute you belong, you show up. And the minute you show up, you show that you belong here. And other people see that, and other people want to bring others in the room like you. So we just need to get to that place where we need to show up and realize that we belong. But yes, the imposter syndrome is so there. I mean, lean in. Sheryl Sandberg, she is a COO there at Facebook, and she still feels imposter syndrome. What about us?
I know. And yeah, as you said, it comes in time with confidence. On my journey, I still battle with it. I think because it's a constant journey, and when you're in a journey of growth, you're always going to feel like that, like stepping up to the next level. There's always going to be the next challenge, and then you feel like, I'm not ready, or I don't have enough experience, or I'm too young, and you make up these excuses in your mind. But I think it's a constant process of working on that confidence. I mean, we've definitely grown from our early days in our career to now, but I think it's going to be a constant battle and, you know, maybe also uplifting our fellow woman, which you do for me all the time in the office, where I think maybe I'm not ready for this, and you're like, no, you're ready. And
Yeah,
you know,
remember when we had this, we were looking through these agreements,
yeah,
and I was like, but wait, this doesn't make sense. And you said, I've actually never questioned that.
yeah, exactly.
It's stuff like that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Where we bring each other up because we need to consider each other in the room. And another thing that I'm going back to Robert Sharma because I am a fan. He said around speaking your truth is that the ones who matter will understand, and the ones who don't understand don't matter. And we just need to realize that when we come into a room, the ones who matter will know that we belong there, will know that our voices need to be heard and things like that. And the ones who don't matter, it's okay. It's okay. And I think that's what we're scared. We're scared of making enemies as women. You know, we always want to have friends in the room. We always want to be nice, and we always want to play that good role.
Yes.
And not exactly. Whereas men don't care. They just want the outcome. That's it. And we need to get to that stage where the ones who matter will come with us. And the ones who don't matter, it's okay.
Yeah, that reminds me of a book, Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office. I'm actually reading it at the moment. It's quite hectic, some of the things, because a lot of our behaviors are very deep and ingrained from childhood. The way we act and behave now is basically because of society, the way we've grown up, societal beliefs, and the way we operate is within those confines.
That's
so
true.
it's just very normalized. So there are some self-sabotaging actions or behaviors that we may present, and without even realizing it, it's very unconscious. You know, for example, say overcompensating and working extra hard. It's a very common theme in women, but why do we do that to ourselves? We do it because, you know, I'm not entirely sure, but from my perspective, I've always been trying to prove myself. I feel like in my younger days, I've always been just trying to prove myself and doing whatever it takes. And at this point, I feel like I'm in a comfortable space where I'm done trying to prove myself.
Yeah.
You know, I'm comfortable in who I am. Yes, I've got experience, but I also know that I have weaknesses, and, you know, I'm a balanced person.
Yeah.
Yes, I've got value to add, and yes, there's things I need to work on, but I am who I am, and I'm going to show up authentically. And as you said, you know, they take it or leave it. Yeah.
You remind me of Christina Aguilera's song, I Am. Do you know it?
No.
It's she talks about, she says, I am confident, I am vulnerable, I am uncomfortable, I am woman. And it's all these elements of, like you said, you know, sometimes we're vulnerable, sometimes we're strong, but that's what makes us woman, and that's what we need to be proud about.
Yeah.
And the minute we come into a room, and you actually wanted to talk about that, you were like, what advice would you give to the young Tinyko? You know what I mean?
Yes.
If she comes into the room,
be
yourself. Be fully you. Because when we come to the table, we almost try to emulate the guys around us.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I'm talking sports I don't even watch. Like, I don't even watch Man United, and now I'm trying to say, oh my gosh, guys, did you see Messi score? No, he doesn't even play for Man United. I didn't know that. But we try to emulate the guys in the room. You know, we try to, that's why we wear suits, because we try to emulate them and look like them.
Yeah.
Instead, we need to come in and be ourselves, because that's what diversity is. If we don't come in with a different thinking, if you don't come in as yourself, then it's groupthink at the end of the day. And what are we doing for our investors then, you know?
Yeah.
If we're not considering things in isolation as individuals, then we are not doing anything for our investors in terms of being able to see these opportunities and changing the way that we think in terms of our decisions as well.
100% agree with that. And I think my advice is like probably just the exact same advice. I think show up as your authentic self, because in that you have freedom and creativity of thinking, because you are so comfortable in who you are. I think you present the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
You know, just trying to be something else or pretending or hiding, that's just not going to bring out the best version of yourself. Just show
Yeah.
up authentically. Come with your quirks. Just show up.
That's
just
true.
go for it.
I think that's what I like in young people. I look at them and I think, wow, this person is just too much. But I wish I was that brave as well when I was younger.
Yeah.
And I think we need to, as women now that we know, how difficult it is to break the barrier to become yourself, we need to give other women the space to become themselves too. And I remember a lot of the times it's in what you say, hey? It really is in what you say. I remember when I started a role and I was just asking about, how are decisions made, basically, and how do you get the one side of the group knowing about the other side, because it's a group, right? And they have different kind of divisions. So we had this induction with everyone. And, the woman in the room said, well, it's, we do have these meetings, but of course it's not going to be at an analyst level, but, so your bosses will know about it, basically. And what was she saying?
Okay.
At that stage, you don't need to know about these things.
Sure.
So I thought to myself, but that's not how you build an inclusive culture where it's you basically just closing the door for someone who's curious, for someone who wants to be involved. And you're saying, of course, it's not going to be at your level that you will know about these strategic things. So we need to watch our language.
Yeah.
I don't think she was aware that she said that, but in saying that, she already closed the door for me, and I thought, okay, great. Let me not say anything because I'm not at that level.
Yeah. How do you implement an inclusive culture? It's by caring enough for the people in your organization to allow them to grow.
Yeah.
And you need to take all the steps needed for them to grow. So whatever that may be. So, for example, a junior person in a meeting, allow them to present something, allow them to present and have a section to present. They need that experience. They actually did the underlying work. Give them that opportunity. Ask people in meetings what their view and thoughts are.
Yeah.
I mean, people at all levels have value to add, especially, young people, across the spectrum.
Yeah.
So I think in the past, things were not done like that. It's the junior people or woman must keep your mouth shut and let the rest of the people do the talking. But really include people and see the value that they have to bring.
That's how you empower them, right? Mm-hmm. That is amazing, actually. And we need to be conscious about it too.
Yes.
So at Ascension, we've got this Accelerate program. And I think it's such an amazing initiative in that bringing other people into the private equity sector or just giving students a chance to understand what it is that we do. And when I joined Ascension, I didn't understand this because where do we have the time to bring in a student and teach them about private equity? Like we're still doing transactions. There's no way.
Yeah.
But it's that conscious decision that we made that we are going to bring someone into the space and teach them what private equity is about.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to do. And that's how you bring others to the table. It's a conscious decision. It takes time. It takes effort.
Yes.
It takes a lot of our energy because we now need to come up with a job for this little student to do, at the office.
Yeah.
But it's that energy that's worth it. And that's what's going to change and shift things.
Yeah, it's so rewarding. And I hope it does impact their lives. I think it, even as the giver of the teachings, I feel like it's rewarding in itself. So I think it's a win-win.
It is. Yeah, we've had 2 students this year. And from the outputs that they've given us in terms of the work that we've given them, we used one of them for commercial due diligence. I used that work in terms of the investment committee paper. I don't know if you realized it, but yes, I used that. And the other individual we had looked at the company as the customer that we're looking at for this transaction.
Yeah.
And I used that as well,
Yeah.
a lot of the work that he did.
Yeah.
So
It's all relevant and
it
value
is.
adding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So just as much as support is important at the workplace, I think what's equally important is support at home. Because yes, we spend a lot of time at the office, but at home, it is so weird when we need to show up at the table, but at home we need to step back and be a different person. That's called schizophrenia. That's really schizophrenia. So I really want to implore families, implore husbands to show up for their wives when it comes to private equity, because many times we have to sit, because our jobs, it's very active, right? So we have to go into management meetings. We have to go there and show up and be in these meetings, go to the warehouse, to the factories, where the companies that we invest in are working. And sometimes it takes till 7 p.m. We're there till 9 p.m. We're there at odd hours that make it difficult to be there at home. And it's so important to have a great support at home that understands that this is your life choice as a private equity individual. We don't have working hours. It's not an 8 to 5. It's a any time. And it's so important that we get that support at home as well. So I just want to implore husbands, honestly, if you have a wife in private equity, understand and support her role.
No, that's a great point. Thanks, Tinyko. This was an awesome discussion today. Sure, great topic. And I'd like to appeal to everyone listening. Please share your comments. If you're a woman in private equity or in this industry, please share the challenges you've faced and how you've dealt with it. And if you are a student in your 3rd or 4th year of university, consider applying for the Ascension Accelerate Student Program and get a taste of what private equity is all about. We're here to share knowledge, empower individuals, and just give you the best chance in life. So thanks everyone for listening.